RITC Cybersecurity, empowering businesses with robust cybersecurity protection.
Welcome to the Cypher Reality from RITC Cybersecurity, where the real threats of the digital world come alive. This week, we're about to unravel the latest jaw-dropping headlines, the latest threats, expose daring hacks, and the dangers of the cyber world, and review what you might have missed in March. On Cypher Reality, we are unleashing cybersecurity tips and tricks that could be the difference between safety and disaster for you and your business. I'm Mike Rotondo, joined by the dynamic duo, my co-hosts Mari Cherry and Nikki Rodriguez. Are you ready to discover what's really hiding behind your screen? Connect with us at ritcsecurity.com/contact. Now on to the new news. Nikki, for March, what do we got?
All right. So this first one that I have is from a little earlier in the month. It's probably a few weeks old now. 2 weeks old now. And it came off of Wired, which I haven't seen before, but this was a really good story from Wired.com. And it says hundreds of millions of iPhones can be hacked with a new tool found in the wild. So I think we already talked about the Karuna one, but this one is called Dark Sword, and it literally came out, guess what? Right after Karuna did. Yay. Yeah, so Dark Sword is used by Russians, but it's not just Russia. From what I was reading in the article, it actually has been used by other hacker groups. And the best part is what Russia did is when Russia did this last campaign, they left the full unsubscribed Dark Sword code out there
Well, that was
other
nice,
hackers to get. Yeah, so they're just sharing it. Because, you know, guys, sharing is caring in the hacker world, clearly. So, or at least in this case. So in the article, it talks about, obviously, this is taking over devices that are running on iOS 18 and older. So we talked about this, like the older ones are the ones that are unfortunately more easily hackable. And that is due to the fact that people are not updating. And later in the article, it actually, the Wired.com interviewed a spokesperson for Apple, and that was something the spokesperson brought up, and something that we talk about all the time is making sure that you are doing your updates because of this. This is why you need to do your updates. So yeah, this in particular hack came out 2 weeks after the Karuna toolkit that was used, and they were saying in the article that it's hit victims, like we're talking millions of victims in places like Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Malaysia, and it's not just Russia. Like I was saying, it's more than one group that is causing this chaos at this point in time, and it's gonna affect a lot of users, because a lot of people, I think it said 25%, basically a quarter of iPhone users are not updated.
It doesn't surprise me at all.
A quarter, 25%. And I think it's because maybe people I know, like the whole thing with Apple, like people, they're like, well, when they do the updates, they're doing it to break my phone, and like we need to break that thought process, because that's not what it's for. So I literally called my mom and had to tell her today, did you update all your phones? Always do your updates immediately. Please do your updates. And I was like explaining to her why updates are important and what they do and what patches are. And so I think it's just getting the word out there, because this is crazy. This exploited literally hundreds of millions of iPhones.
Yeah, and they could do thousands at a time.
Yep.
Did I read that right? Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they, like you said, they just left it out there to share.
Left it to share.
Yep, people could just grab it, and then they can, just thousands and thousands. So this is really good.
I think it's awesome.
Really
And,
exciting.
one of the things that's interesting about this malware is that it's fileless, which means it does not persist. And it's just like what they use on Windows devices, but now they've adapted it to iPhones. And I recently came across a client of a client that I was doing a little kibitzing for, or a little commenting for. And they actually had one of their policies that iPhones can't be hacked. And it's like, you A, don't want that in the policy. B, that's not true. Obviously, they were not one of our customers, but yeah. So that was.
That was a common thought, though, that a lot of people thought Apple just couldn't be hacked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fine.
That's for years now, though. But that's what. And to be fair, obviously, the general public was always told that, and that was truth
Sure.
for a long time, where Apple was not getting hacked. There weren't exploits out there. It hadn't been figured out yet, you know, but it was a matter of time. As we know, in what we do in our industry, everything's a matter of time. And so the everyday person doesn't know that, and that's why we try to educate them and let them know, like, no one is safe, nothing is safe, and no one is safe. We're not safe. The FBI just got hacked by Iran today. They just announced it. So if the FBI can get hacked, your iPhone can get hacked.
Oh Lord.
Just saying. So none of us, even us, we're not safe. You know, we put as many safeguards as possible in play, and that's what the game is. You know, do what
what's
you
scary
can.
is that's not the first FBI hack by Iran or Russia or
Yeah.
you know. So
Right.
if you put enough concerted effort there, but generally, my guessing in that is a compromised user. It's not a frontal assault. So
Yeah.
but you know,
Right.
the stuff. I mean, some of the things that I've explained to people, you know, I hear people, you know, we are at war with Iran right now, and they're like, yeah, but what are they going to do to us? And it's like they have asymmetric warfare from a terrorist perspective, but also from a cybersecurity perspective, they are a very advanced adversary, and they're all
Yes,
over the
and
world.
exactly.
So
Well, I think that's the problem, is a lot of people think, when they think of war, they think of, you know, actual physical bombs,
mhm.
like troops on the ground. And I've talked about this before. That's why I got interested in cybersecurity when I was in school for criminal justice, because I realized it's not physical anymore. It's everything's going cyber. That's the way things are going to, warfare will get to where it's predominantly cyber and fought cyber. And I think this is just a glimpse that we're starting to get now, or we're starting to see now. So I hope it's stuff like that as a wake-up call. And this story especially is a good wake-up call, because everyone thought Apple products were completely safe. And they've just been living in that delusion for a long time now.
Well, part of that also is because of the install base, right? So the criminal is going to go after what the largest install base, and for a long time, Windows was
Yeah.
99% or 95%. Now Mac is closer to 30, 40% would be my guess. So they're actually a worthwhile
Yeah.
target now.
I don't know if you saw, I saw another story, because I just read the news throughout the week. There's a exploit on Linux
Mm-hmm.
now too, which was another one. People are like, yeah, Linux is like superior, and it's not gonna, it's just not a hackable one. Here it is. It's just, you know,
Well, give it time.
give it
Well,
time. We'll find a way, and then, you know, that's our job too. Let's
well,
fix it now.
as I was explaining to somebody yesterday, it's everything from your washing machine to your your garage door opener to your baby monitor to your computer can be hacked.
Yep, that's
So,
right.
and that's how I had a guy at the
Everything.
house. He was trying to sell me a Nest um, thermostat, and I'm like, dude, the last thing I want is my thermostat on the web. Sorry, not going to happen. He's like, this will save
No,
you
thank you.
hundreds of dollars a month. I'm like, there's not a ghost chance in hell I'm putting something that can be controlled by the web on your
I don't
yeah.
think it will.
Yeah.
I don't think
There was a movie that came out with Anthony Hopkins in it not too long ago on Netflix, and it was where he got this guy, and to get revenge, he locked him in this really nice car. The guy was trying to steal the car, and the car was like remote controlled.
Oh
Like,
wow.
he hacked it and got in there and literally turned up the thermostat, and he tortured this guy and had it set up to torture that. Yeah, and there's been other movies and stuff where they've made where, like, that's what it is. It's a smart home, and then they get into the system and they torture the people
Hmm.
inside, and people think like, well, it's in the
Oh
movies. I'm
my
like, oh
god.
no, it's
Yeah.
real.
Yikes. Yeah. Yeah, get into it. Oh my
Could this happen?
I
Yes, it
remember
could.
Yeah.
about oh gosh, this is like 2003, 4 when the electronic locks were new. And my ex-wife and I were
Oh.
living in an apartment near that where she was doing her surgical residency. And she just never brought her key because she's like, oh, I have the code. The keypad died. And she had no way in the
Yeah.
house. And I'm like, oh, I'm in Detroit. There's not much I can do for you from here. So yeah.
Darn it.
So
No.
That might be a
yeah, you got to
problem.
be careful with technology. So keys still work. So yeah.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
talking to someone about this stuff this morning. They're like, how do you trust any of it. What do you know is real and what's not? And I was like, that's a fair question, because these days it's hard to tell what is real and what's not. But I was like, but I would rather like err on the side of caution and be prepared for it than be blindsided by it later.
100%.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, scary times we live in, friends.
The other thing that was interesting about this is not only are they stealing, not only are they hacking your iPhone, they're going for messages, WhatsApp, Telegram, browser history, calendar, notes data, your health app, which I thought was interesting, passwords and photos. So they're looking for everything.
Everything.
So.
Everything. Anything they can exploit.
Yep. All right.
Any data they can sell, anything they can exploit. So
how about let's move on to the next uplifting story.
This one's actually good news. We like this because this was Russia doing bad stuff. But guess what? Now someone actually got arrested, and that never really happens. But we're starting to see it, which is interesting because there was actually a few stories of arrests, which is not common, but we're starting to see it now. So this one came from the hackernews.com, and it's entitled "Russian Hacker Sentenced to 2 Years for TA551 Botnet-Driven Ransomware Attacks." And so this was a 40-year-old Russian national. His name was Ilya Angelov, and he was from Toilati, Russia. And his aliases he went by were Milan and Oakhart. And he co-managed TA551. And I like the names that this group went by. There was a couple AKs. I didn't write all of them down, but one of them was Mario Kart, and the other one was Monster Libra. I was like, I like those. I know we're not supposed to like what bad guys do, but
there's also
the names.
I do the same thing. The names catch my eye every time. But those are.
There's also Gold Cabin.
I like the names.
Gold Cabin and Scat Hack. So.
Yeah. I don't know. I liked video games, so Mario Kart, I was like, hell yeah, Mario Kart.
Yeah.
But he was fined $100,000 and sentenced to 2 years, which really, honestly, let's be honest, that doesn't really seem like a whole lot of time for what they were doing, all the exploits they were doing. So this was botnet driven, and what a botnet is a network of compromised computers that distribute malware, basically, and they'll infect attached files to like spam emails is pretty much how they were running this campaign. And what they also, with this group, sold access to individual compromised computers, or bots as they're called. And what it did was it bypassed security tools. So these guys, again, sharing is caring in this world. Just passing it on to other people.
They're so generous.
And this went on, so this was back in 2018, so from August 2018 to December 2019. But then because of the other exploits that ended up getting involved that they were involving themselves with, so another one was Iced ID, and that lasted all the way through 2021. So this went on for a long time, like a good 3-year period. And it said it was almost 15 million, 14.7 million in extortions. I can't speak. But yeah, a lot of money. So, I mean, this is huge that they were able to actually get someone and trace it back and actually, put them through court. Like I said, for that much money and, chaos cause, I don't think 2 years is really justice. That's just me. $100,000.
Yeah.
That's kind of like, I feel like he got off pretty easy. My guess is they probably cut a deal and he's working for the government at this point. If you want,
would not surprise me in the least. So
that is my personal opinion on why he was only slapped on the wrist. Just gonna throw that out there as someone with a criminal justice degree. So, yeah. So what was kind of cool too, because later in the story it also talked about this happened just days after another 26-year-old Russian was sentenced to 7 years for acting as a broker to the, I can't say this, but Yan Lu Wang ransomware attack.
That's the name to
Yep.
Okay.
Hey,
So anyways,
if
so
they
now they're
want their
starting to
names
get
to sound
people.
better on the podcast, then A, they need to come up with better names, or B, provide phonetic spellings
What do
for
they
us.
do?
So,
Because some of these names they come up with are wild, and I am not going to pronounce them correctly no matter what. But yeah, the kid in that, he's doing 7 years for what he did.
Kid? Like,
And that attack, there was 8 companies that were involved in the US that he targeted. So this is pretty big. And then I actually saw a story too, like this past week, where in Russia actually put a hacker on trial. They arrested and have a hacker on trial there. So they're going after them as well. Because I think they're getting tired of it because they're being exploited as well by their own
well,
countrymen.
you know how that works in Russia, though. You get hired, you get
tell us.
you get arrested and you get tried as a hacker. You go to a gulag and they say, guess what? You get to work as a hacker for free now, and you work for us. It's not like they're throwing you in prison.
Yes.
And you get to go hack from prison for the government that put you in prison, and that's the way it works.
That's
When the
exactly. Yeah, they don't get a 2-year slap on
no,
the
when
wrist.
when the Ukraine war started, as things started going worse, and I don't want to get into a whole lot of war, but what happened is the Russians came out and they went to anybody with technical skills in any of the gulags or prisons that they had and said, here's your deal. We will take you out of the
Guess
prison.
what?
We will put you in a barracks where you at least will have heat and at least 2 meals a day, and you will work for us doing hacking work. You won't be mining. You won't be digging up rocks in Siberia. You won't be freezing your butts off. And that was the deal. So they went out and expanded their functionality that way because they basically emptied their prisons to do it. So this guy may be really good, and the Russians were like, hey, he's not working for us yet. Guess what? You're arrested, and now you work for us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just some wild stuff out there. These guys also came out with phishing emails containing password protective archives, tricked recipients into opening macro-enabled Microsoft Word docs, leading to deployment of macro downloaders that downloaded additional tools. So pretty scary stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up and ask you about that and the NIST theory of
Yeah.
passwords. How does that?
I
We just had this discussion the other
Yeah.
day.
So
I'm laughing right
the
now.
the NIST
Just
theory of
curious.
passwords, now that you don't need to change the password, you can go with a longer password, and I do not agree with that. If you have MFA, then you can extend the time between password changes because you do have that additional layer of protection. However, passwords should be changed my opinion is every 90 to 180 days. But somebody
Yeah.
at NIST thinks it's okay to never change them, which I just astonishes me that they're going to do that. I mean, if you have that and then like a bunch of compensating controls with it, that's one thing. But if you don't have that, then you're inviting disaster. And the average small company, especially the people who are like, hey, we don't have to change passwords anymore, are probably the people without the controls in place.
That's exactly what I was going to say because it's not something people like doing anyway. So they're going to be like, "Oh, look, we're going to just follow what
Yeah.
NIST is doing."
Yeah.
So I think it's a
And
risk.
NIST says 15 to 64 characters. I'm going to go out on a limb and say 99% of them are going to be right around 15.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Exactly.
If that, you think they're going to be around 15? Most of them, the majority.
no,
Gonna be that
I
long?
think most of them are going to be around 8.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I feel like people overcomplicate it too because obviously, like, we use password savers that are locked and stuff. So if you get one of those and you get one that auto generates like completely random stuff that's 30 characters long, that
Yeah.
I mean, we know there's trillions of ways that it can auto create, with different characters. You don't even have to remember it. All you have to do is remember one master password that you change every 30 to 90 days, whatever you're choosing for your organization or for your personal use. So it really is not that hard. It's humans making things overcomplicated and fighting
Yeah.
things.
Spend the $19 a year on a
Yeah.
password keeper and then change your passwords all the time.
Absolutely. I made my parents have it now, and guess what? They're
So
forced to
you're
use it.
doing to your family what Mari did to her family when she started working here.
Yeah, my significant other and my family and his family now
Yeah.
are forced, and I send them texts whenever there's. I was just this morning. I'm like, there's smishing going on where the state is going to send you and tell you that you're getting a violation. Do not click on the link. Please send this message to your parents right now. He's like, okay. I'm like, no, I'm being serious. And then I called my mom right afterwards and I lectured them. So yes, I do it. Yes.
Good.
Someone's got to do it.
Yep. Someone's got to do it.
I got a text the other day, and it was just so blatantly obvious. It was like, really? It was just so blatantly obvious. It was just so bad. It was like, and I can't remember what it was. And I was going to screenshot it and send it to you guys, but it was just like, I was doing something and it was just like, but someone's going to try and click on that thing. And it was something like, you have a $20,000 fine if you don't respond within X number of days and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Oh, you got one of them
Yeah.
already. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going around a lot. And then I think what a lot of people don't realize is you need to report it as spam so that the server or whoever your carrier is, like let's say you're getting it through an email, so the server, let's say you're getting it via text message, the carrier, it then alerts them. So if they're getting alerts multiple times for that same number as being spam, they're going to cut that off. They look at it at that point in time so you're actually saving other people. Because my mom this morning, this is really funny, she goes, her husband, I go, make sure you tell Norman. She goes, he always tells me that I'm ridiculous when I report it, just to delete it. I go, okay, well, you can tell him that he's ridiculous and that I told him.
Let me give you my reasons.
And I told her, she goes, I'm going to tell him right now. I was like, I'm just here to save lives. I'm your Robin Hood.
That's
Yeah.
Start small. You gotta start with your home, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep,
Just like
exactly.
telemarketers.
Best places.
Yes.
Yeah.
Start with your friends and family.
The worst.
For sure.
All right.
All right.
The worst.
Yeah, we are ready to move on to the next set of stories.
So fun. All right, this first one is APT41 linked Silver Dragon. I like this name. Targets governments using Cobalt Strike and Google Drive C2. All right, so Silver Dragon gains its initial access by exploiting public-facing internet servers and by delivering phishing emails that contain malicious attachments. So that's not anything new. It might have a new picture or new words attached to it, but nothing new. Anyway, so to maintain persistence, the group hijacks legitimate Windows services, which allows the malware processes to blend into normal system activity. That's
it's the living off the land stuff that we keep talking about. That's the problem, is that they're really starting to exploit that. So, and then Cobalt Strike. I think we've talked about this before. Versus Metasploit. Metasploit is kind of like an artillery barrage, and Cobalt Strike is opposed to exploitation, like a sniper rifle. Like they're looking for something specific. And then setting up those CNC servers, command and control servers to continue to exploit is dangerous. I mean, it really is. It's some serious stuff. But I think didn't this one say that it is APT level, like nation state level, or are these guys individuals?
a prolific Chinese hacking group known for its targeting of healthcare, telecoms, high-tech, education, travel services, and media sectors for cyber espionage as early as 2012, potentially outside of state control.
Essentially. Or they're doing both. Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Probably. Probably doing both.
So yeah, and then the persistence is becoming a bigger problem. And I had a talk over with someone the other day who's got they've had vulnerabilities that are criticals or highs that have been existing for over 300 days. It's like, guys, you can't just let that stuff sit. I don't know what your compensating controls are completely, but they're not that secure. So
this is interesting because it says it looked like when you read further down, it said third infection chain involves a phishing campaign that has primarily targeted Uzbekistan.
Yep. Okay.
Any particular reason for it?
They're mad at the Uzbeks about something, or maybe it's just their turn.
Something. I know. I'm like, that is a random country to pick to go.
Well,
I was gonna say, I don't
like threw a dart at a map.
Literally.
Messed with lately. I mean, I know like that in actuality, and I don't know if this is still true, but at one time it was like the North Koreans' primary exploit location was Africa because they were looking for actual cash, whereas The Chinese were and Russians were hitting
Okay.
everybody, and then the Iranians were typically targeting us. And so it was they were all like they all had like a geography because they all specialized in certain things. Like the North Koreans aren't as interested in espionage as the Chinese and the Russians are. The Iranians are just
Right.
interested in messing up stuff. So the Norks wanted money. Different groups want different things, and different countries want different things, and then different APTs are specialized in different things. So it's really, I mean, really more and
Right.
more like a business, like we keep talking about, is that they specialize now. So
Yeah.
Or they just leave stuff out there.
yeah,
Yeah. And then you have like the loan shark hackers, you know what I mean, that are
yeah,
just, but I feel like they're normally, it's like monetary.
100%.
They're looking
It's
for
either that
money.
or ego.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like Mari and I were talking about this in a previous
Yeah.
podcast, is that back in the day, back when this originally all started, it was all to see who could outdo what. So, and who could do the best hack and the coolest hack or whatever. And that's why they would go then talk to Krebs at Krebs on Security and say, hey, guess what I did? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Clout.
Yeah.
So,
That makes
all
sense.
right. We want to move on to the next one. That's the one about Quidditch.
Yep. That's why I picked this one. It's Quidditch. No, it's not. I wish it was. New air snitch attack show Wi-Fi client isolation via false sense of security. Okay,
Yep.
that's fun. Researchers from UC Riverside developed attacks able to bypass client isolation and Wi-Fi networks used at home, at work, in airports, and in coffee
Yep.
shops, and
Oh.
anywhere else. Probably anywhere else. 4 computer scientists from Riverside and from KU Leuven,
Sure.
Belgium, found that every router and network they tested was vulnerable to at least one
Yep.
attack. So at least one. Some were more than one. 3, I believe it said later in the article. Yeah, not all Wi-Fi networks are susceptible to all 3 attacks, but the research did not find any network that could not be exploited by at least one method. So at
Good
least
to
one.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is really great. Really,
This is
and
why
they,
don't use Starbucks Wi-Fi.
No. Tether off your phone.
no, and they, yes,
Yeah.
the machine in the middle attack. I don't know if that's come up a lot. That
Normally
specific
it's man in the
phrase.
middle,
Has
but
it?
machine in the middle is,
Yeah.
it's the machine that's actually stealing
Yeah.
it before. Yeah. And this,
Yeah.
oh no,
Go ahead.
this is where the Wi-Fi pineapple comes in. There are things like that come in that just exploit this stuff all over the place. But I mean, the fact that, the actual control that was designed by the router people is being used against it to break it, I think is fascinating.
Yeah, they were using another attack that targets at the IP addresses,
Yeah.
I guess, by using AP's gateway MAC address. So that's good too. And then they're abusing the GTK attack. I was going to ask you, GTK, does that stand for something specific that we should know, or is that just
GTK. I don't remember
Yeah.
off the top of my head, to be honest with you. I think it's probably Kerberos, but I could be wrong.
Oh, okay. It didn't sound familiar to me. So yeah, but anyway, so that's a lot of fun. But we knew we shouldn't use public Wi-Fi. It's just
No.
just a few examples to read that
It's
point.
funny that you say that because
Oh, it's a gateway bounce.
my other job, I was there yesterday, and one of the girls that I work with, she's in the back, and she was trying to connect to like our scheduler that the app that we use, which is a Microsoft platform, and she was like, "Oh, it's not working." She's like, "I wonder if I'm connected to the Wi-Fi," and I don't know, just out of habit, I go, "You connect to the Wi-Fi here?" And she looked at me like I was crazy. I go, "Oh, I don't connect to public
Yeah,
Wi-Fi."
Mhm.
And then I realized I sound crazy. I was like, maybe I'm not crazy.
Oh,
No, I think the more people talk about it, the better it will be, because that's how it goes. Things are weird, kind of taboo, because nobody
Yeah.
knows
right.
about it. But the more you talk about it, then people will be more susceptible to taking that in and maybe following some of that.
Yeah.
Well, I think because I always joke and say well, I'm being serious too when I say live paranoid, but like then I realize how paranoid I really am when I talk to other people. And I'm like, do I sound like a weird conspiracy theorist person because of this stuff? Or
Yeah, you do.
like they probably think I'm off my rocker.
It's hard not to, honestly. Like I was saying this morning, I was talking to a friend and I said, I just don't take everything with a grain of salt because I don't necessarily trust anything or anyone. So err on the side of caution. That's my advice.
And I think like the deeper you get into obviously what we do and you see and you know, we read all these stories on a regular basis and like it does make you paranoid, which I think for good reason. I mean,
it's hard not to be.
Then sometimes I feel like when I say stuff like that, like my automatic reaction was like, you connect to public Wi-Fi? She looked at me like I was nuts. I was like, do I
don't?
Am I the crazy one?
We talk about professional paranoia all the time, though. I mean, there's things that, you know, we tell people not to do, and then they're like, well, why not? It's like, well, we live in a world where this all gets exploited. So, you know, it's like we see all the bad. So, you know, it might be okay, but, you know, it's like people that have Siri on, it's like, turn that off, please, you know, kind of stuff. And Mari. Or use facial recognition.
I'm bad with that. Sorry, guys.
I don't do that sometimes, but it's okay. We're just we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah, I do have all my settings for microphone stuff turned off on my phone and any kind of like location settings and data collecting. I spent like an hour just going through all my stuff on my iPhone, turning off stuff in the background, turning off everything in the background that, I mean, you don't realize is on your phone and what they're literally mining data from you without you realizing it. And it's in small print, so they can legally do it.
Yeah.
Unless you opt to turn it off, which I have now at this point in time. But for the everyday person, they don't know that, and I think it's pretty unfair. The disclaimer needs to be in bigger writing.
Agreed. I was having a conversation similar to this with a friend, a business owner, and I was like, your phone needs to be protected because you have a lot of other people's information on your phone. It's not just you. It's not just your family. It's all of your clients as well. And they were like, oh, shit. Oh, no. And I was like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But also I'm not sorry.
Yeah, and now they made that. I mean, I was glad that it made big news about Instagram and Meta. Your messages are no longer encrypted, so they can access anything in your messages. So you really need to be careful with what you're putting in there, because people put like phone numbers, addresses. They use that instead of using like their regular messaging, like their SMS on their phones. And so they're sharing a lot of personal information back and forth on the Meta platforms. And now that is going to be very easily hacked, unfortunately. And I get why Meta is doing it, because they're looking for like specific words for like terrorist stuff and everything, specific language and everything. But now that also takes away a layer of protection for everybody. So people need to be more vigilant with that as well.
Well, it's not all altruistically driven about how they want to look for specific words. It also, if you encrypt things, it slows things down, right? So looking for speed. And that's what, and speed and performance is one of the reasons why they're doing it too. So,
so
I'm feeling very jaded today.
Not so safe.
So,
I know.
So,
it's okay. You're allowed to.
But I would venture to say that there's speed and performance as part of it. Part of it is part of the issue.
That would make sense.
But then you look at, all the stuff we saw about post-quantum cryptography that we were at that seminar last week, and it's like, encrypt it, don't encrypt it, what difference does it make at a certain point? All going to get broken anyway, so.
That's a whole other now.
Yeah.
But they said by 2030 they think it's going to be here.
They say 2030, but I have a hard time believing 2030.
Believing that. Yeah.
I'm skeptical too, but I don't know.
I mean, the cost on those things is going to be so high. It's going to be like, the universities, or it's going to be,
Yeah.
something. But they've had Cray computers for a long time. They're these monster data hackers, but you don't see them running around anywhere. I mean, they're monster mainframes that, the NSA uses, a lot of government
Yeah.
uses, and it's just, they're not sitting on your desktop. So the other thing about quantum computing is they're having a real problem hooking it into traditional computing. And there's no real standards. They're developing the standards to write software for this to communicate to standard software. And there's no error checking. And because quantum is based on what is the uncertainty of the qubit, I mean, there's you can't really nail the thing down. It's just like, so yeah, in theory, you can build the computer. Can it talk to anything? Not necessarily. Can it do anything? It sure can crunch a bunch of numbers and do a bunch of stuff on its own, but it can't necessarily talk to anything else. So
Yeah, so realistically, like who would even be using it right away? Who would it benefit
it's going
right
to be
away?
scientists, and it's going to be the
What
military, and it's
industry?
going to be that kind of
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
that's what I mean. It's very limited to who
Yeah.
It's not going to be like an everyday
Right.
user.
exactly.
Kind of.
Exactly. That's my point. It's going to be very specified industries that are going to be
Yeah.
using it
Well,
in the
and
first
you also have to go
place.
to that. So the processor has to be kept at absolute zero. That's negative, I think,
Hmm.
459 degrees. I mean, and not everybody's going to be able to handle that one.
That's
Yeah.
insane.
And then on top of
Hmm.
that,
Someone's going to be living in the
yeah.
Antarctic
Well, and then on top of
permanently.
that, you also have to have a building that is so soundproof and stabilized that it, because any vibration can throw the qubits off. So
That's insane.
that's the other problem is it's like, yeah, so in theory the technology is there and it's been built and it's on a small scale, and in theory you can create these giant computers, and I have no doubt that there will be created at some point, but they are not going to be on your desktop anytime soon. You're not going to be sitting on the
No.
pool by the
Oh,
pool
yeah.
with your Apple Quantum 2E writing email. I mean, it's not going to happen.
I mean, maybe
No.
someday. I think what people are so afraid of is the possibility of it and how quickly it'll take off, and that there's no way we
Yeah.
can keep up as humans. We
Well,
think.
and
I
AI is the same way,
mean,
though. I mean, people have been thinking about AI. Oh my God, it's going to take over everything. It's going to take over everything. It's going to take over everything. And now it's something that AI has only adopted by less than 5% of humanity right now.
Really, less than
Hmm.
5%? I feel like
And there's an extremely small amount that actually pay for it. So sorry,
I can
Nikki.
get that.
I didn't mean to cut you
yeah,
off, Nikki. What did you want to say?
I can't remember.
It's that kind of day.
Yeah, my brain is
Yeah.
done.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah. Well, we
on that note, one more
one more.
story.
Tectivity analysis. Ghost asset are the breach your security stack can't stop. So that sounds fun. That's cybersecuritydive.com. Tectivity, a leading IT asset management provider, today released an analysis examining the relationship between untracked hardware and enterprise data breaches. The findings point to a persistent blind spot in corporate security strategy. Organizations are investing heavily in software-based defenses while failing to account for the physical devices that connect to their networks. And we see this even just with some of our
Yeah.
smaller businesses. Many of which are no longer visible to IT teams at all. I can't even imagine the issue we see on a small scale and what it's like for bigger
Hmm. Oh,
companies,
yeah.
large companies that have thousands of employees, devices. How do you handle that?
Well,
What do you do?
I think the biggest problem is with remote workers and them not just sending devices back. And I think that is definitely a big deal because you have to have some kind of punitive measure in place that you don't get your last paycheck until we get our devices back. And that's the only way you're going to ensure you get your devices back, because otherwise it's going to take forever. You're not going to, get your pieces. You're not going to get your computers back. If you pay them in advance, forget it. You're screwed. Especially if they left on bad terms. So,
Mhm.
Hmm.
but the other
Yeah.
the other solution to that is, a lot of businesses don't have this as a remote wipe capability. And if you can just make that device inert and just completely lock it down, then there's no incentive to keep the device. But there's a lot of people that will try anyway. So
So you're saying that a lot of people do not have a remote
It's
policy or anything
think
like
about
that
it.
in
The
place?
majority of the companies in the U.S. are actually small companies, right? So it's something like I want to say 90% are small companies, and a lot of them don't. I mean, I can think of clients off the top of my head that don't have something like that. So
So what do they do in the case of, let's say, like, because a lot of people work remote like myself and use their own personal computers or laptops or devices, you know what I
mhm,
mean? And could still have whatever company stuff
mhm.
on there.
Hmm.
I mean, so same thing, even though it's not a company owned
Right.
device, it's still,
So you,
I think that then it would boil down to policies and whether you signed an
mhm.
acknowledgement form or not.
yeah,
I mean, there's DLP tools that you can use that like prevent USBs and all that kind of stuff, but um, in reality, there's nothing to stop most remote users from downloading their data in a small company. I mean, I've told you
yeah,
guys about that contractor at a state government or state agency or institution I worked at that basically they handed him the entire database of all college or school age kids from like 5 to 17, and he was a foreign
yeah,
contractor, and he was disappeared the next day. So
yeah. I remember you telling that's wild.
it's you know um,
Infuriating.
yeah, it's hard to understand why people would do that, but those controls just aren't in place, and for a lot of them. So okay, on that, I think we've beaten the news to death. We've beaten March to death. So we're ready to move on to April, as I hope all of you are. Don't miss next week's episode of Cyber Reality, where we unravel the stories you can't afford to ignore and dig deep into why penetration testing and vulnerability scanning are critical to secure your environment. Tune in next week for stories that might just change the way you see the digital world. Be sure to look for our videos on X, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Remember, cybercrime is bad. Love RITC Cybersecurity. Thanks for listening to the Cyber Reality Podcast. Say goodbye to the good folks, Murray and Nikki.
Bye, Murray.
Bye.